Here's my 12-week business acquisition framework after selling well over $100 million in digital companies. So 65 to 90% of all startups fail within the first 5 years, and that's even higher in the digital space because of the ease of starting digital companies. Most founders waste time, they burn cash, and at the end of the day, they end up with nothing. But there's such a much better way to do this and become an entrepreneur and own your own business. And that's by buying existing companies. Instead of taking on all that risk, you can skip the failure phase by buying a business that already has customers, already has systems, and already generates cash flow for you on day one. I've personally acquired multiple seven-figure companies, and I've helped clients secure deals like $2.5 million businesses for less than $200,000 down. My program, called the Digital Acquisition Club, is built around 12 different modules. And in this video, I'm going to show you how those 12 modules stack into a simple 12-week roadmap. Inside the Digital Acquisition Club, I share the exact checklists, the templates, the resources that I've used to close dozens and dozens of deals. So if you like what you see in this video, just click the link below, and I'm more than happy to walk you through the exact same process that I've used successfully many times before. So it all starts in week 1 with acquisition basics. Your job in this first step is just to understand what an online business is and why buying one is a smarter path than starting from scratch. We're talking about acquiring e-commerce brands, Amazon stores, digital marketing agencies, SaaS and software platforms, or anything else that you can run online from the comfort of your own home or vacation, or wherever you like to run and operate your business. And the key advantage of buying instead of starting a business is risk reduction. Starting a business from scratch has something like a 65 to 90% failure rate. And when you acquire a company, you skip that phase and your company already has cash and customers and systems and a team. Even better, the seller often trains you during the transition, passing on years of expertise in that business. And that's why the very first step is mastering these basics, knowing what an online business really is and why acquisitions is the safer, faster way to become a profitable business owner. Now that you know why acquisitions beat starting businesses from scratch, the next big question is, how do you know what these businesses are actually worth? This is where most first-time buyers tend to overpay for companies. So week 2 jumps into understanding business valuations. Most companies in the online space are valued based on a simple multiple of their EBITDA or SDE. And you can use this simple formula: profits plus add backs, which are things like personal expenses run through the business, times a multiple of that business. So let's say a company did $200,000 in profits, but there were about $100,000 in add backs from personal automobile expenses, cell phones, home offices, things like that didn't really drive revenue. Well, you just take that 100 grand, add it back to the 200 grand, and you can see that the business really made $300,000. And maybe that business sells for 3 multiples, so you take the $300,000 times 3, and you have a $900,000 valuation. The skill here is knowing what really counts as valid add backs and what doesn't, and then spotting inflated numbers and knowing what's a realistic valuation and multiple for that type of business. So now you can price a business, but should you actually buy the business? Because the wrong type of business can turn into a nightmare fast that lasts for a long time. So week 3 jumps into choosing the right business for you. You want to pick a business that fits your skills and your lifestyle and your expertise. Are you tech savvy? Then maybe a SaaS or subscription software business is a good business for you. They tend to sell for higher multiples, but they also come with recurring revenue and stickier customers. Or maybe you like physical products, then maybe an e-commerce brand could be your play. And that means having your hands on inventory and their supply chains and shipping products. Or maybe you might lean towards service-based businesses like marketing agencies or consulting firms or other B2B type shops. These often have high margins and quick cash flow, and they could be a great fit if you love working with people. But the point of week 3 isn't just picking an industry, it's aligning what you buy with who you are. The right acquisition should fit your strengths and lifestyle goals and not feel like a full-time job that you end up hating. And even if you pick the perfect business for you, none of it matters if the seller doesn't trust you. Which brings me to week 4, becoming a strong buyer. That's why during the 4th week, your job is to build trust so sellers choose you over other offers, even larger offers. Beginners often think that money is all it takes to close a deal, but in reality, many sellers care more about who they're selling to than the exact dollar amount that they're selling the company for. And here, you can think about it this way. Owners spend 10, 20, sometimes 30 years selling their life's work. I just sold a marketing agency that was 44 years old. That company was their life's work. Their employees were like family, and their reputation meant everything to them. They don't want to just hand it over to the highest bidder. They want to know that their business is in good hands for the future. So how do you show a seller that you're a serious, capable person and the right person to carry their legacy forward? Because if you can position yourself as that type of buyer, you'll often win deals even against people with deeper pockets. Sellers would rather take a slightly lower offer from somebody they really trust and like than risk their company's future on the wrong buyer. Remember, acquisitions are as much about relationships as they are about money. Right, up next is week 5, financing your acquisition. So after you've built trust, the next step is to go finance your purchase. It's just like when you are looking to buy a house. You meet with your lender, you get pre-qualified to understand how much home you can afford, and it's no different when you're buying a business. In the US, we have the SBA loan program, which lets you buy a business with as little as 10% cash down. If you layer that with some seller financing, you can sometimes buy companies with as little as 5% down, and it makes acquisitions very, very achievable for the everyday person. The key is finding lenders who actually understand online acquisitions and cash flow businesses. And once you find the right lender, they can give you a pre-qualification letter, which basically shows sellers that you can afford to buy their business, and it makes it 10 times easier when you start talking to them. Now, being funded and pre-qualified is one thing, but finding great businesses is a completely different animal. There's a hidden deal flow that top buyers use to get first pick on companies when they come to market. So week 6 is all about sourcing deals. And at this stage, your focus is building a pipeline of opportunities. And just like real estate, there are 2 kinds of deals: on-market and off-market deals. On-market deals are the ones you'll see on platforms like Flippa or Website Closers. These are easy to browse, it gives you a feel for the pricing, and it lets you practice your evaluation skills. But usually the best deals are off-market, ones that you never see publicly, where you have to approach the owner directly. And yes, it takes more networking, it takes more work, it takes time and outreach and conversations, but you get to avoid those broker fees. Sometimes you get better pricing, and the best part is there's no competition for that business. And by week 6, you'll know exactly how to build your deal pipeline, whether that's sorting through listings online using filters and saved searches, or through developing relationships directly with owners direct. And then this is where the fun really begins, because once you're seeing enough deals, the right opportunities start to really jump out at you. And week 7 is going to talk about preliminary assessment. You know, when most people see a business for sale, they get excited and they immediately dive deep. And that's a huge mistake, because you don't want to waste weeks analyzing a deal that isn't a great company in the first place. So you want to learn how to assess companies in 15 to 30 minutes. And in week 7, we talk about preliminary assessment, and it's sort of like speed dating for businesses. You're just trying to figure out if the business is really worth your time to learn more. And here's what I mean by that. Is the revenue consistent, or is it spiking randomly? Does the business rely on 1 or 2 big clients? That would be a huge red flag. Is there an employee who, if they left the company, the whole company collapses? Another huge red flag. So within that 15 to 30 minutes, you should be able to say this is worth digging into, or no, let's go on to the next deal. And that quick filtering skill is what separates successful buyers from people who drown in endless spreadsheets, because efficiency is everything in deal flow, and there's hundreds and thousands of deals online to look through. So if a deal passes the quick filter, the next step is diving deeper and making an offer. But how do you structure the offer so sellers say yes, while at the same time you're not overpaying for the company? So week 8 is crafting an offer. So let's say you found a business worth pursuing. Now is the time to make an offer, and which is why in the 8th week, you're going to step into negotiation mode. This is where sellers value certainty, timeline, and really terms more than numbers. And sometimes they'll take a slightly lower price if the deal feels cleaner and faster, and remember, if they like you. So one strategy I use is presenting multiple offers, 2 or 3 different structures. You could have more cash at a lower price or less cash at a higher price, and that gives sellers options without locking you into a single path. And then there's also an anchoring psychology, where your first offer sort of sets the tone for negotiations. You want it to be reasonable, but then still leave room on the table to move and negotiate your deal. Best deals are always structured as win-win, where both parties need to walk away feeling good about the outcome. If one side feels like they got squeezed, the deal tends to fall apart in later weeks and wastes a bunch of your time. But before you go and send any money, you need to really do some deep digging and figure out what sellers sometimes forget to mention. So week 9 will cover due diligence in legal, where you're going to perform due diligence and review the company, the financials, the operations, legalities of the business. You're going to want to ask for tax returns, for bank statements, for financials, P&Ls, cash flows, balance sheets, credit card statements, SOPs, everything you can possibly think of, because this is your opportunity to make sure the business actually is what the seller is claiming it is. And a lot of times in due diligence, you'll uncover things that by accident the seller didn't mention, or they left out, or sometimes maybe even they fudged, and you can use that to either back out of the deal or renegotiate. So it's always a good idea to have a problem-solving mindset while you go through due diligence, and try to give the seller the benefit of the doubt while you're figuring out and sorting through the facts. And then once the numbers check out, it's time to actually buy the business. But a lot can go wrong there. So week 10 is about closing and transition. After you complete due diligence, you're going to go to the closing table. And here, the mission is to safely transfer ownership of the business and or assets. So week 10 walks you through safe closing so you don't lose any cash or control in the process. And this often means using an escrow service to hold the funds while assets like domains and customer lists and accounts are all moved over into your name or your company name. Attorneys and lenders will finalize the paperwork, often, through like a Zoom call or Google Meet call. And then once escrow clears, you're officially the new owner. But always try to use escrow. It's the safeguard that ensures that your money and the assets transfer securely. So congratulations, now you own the company, but how do you operate the company now without breaking it? So week 11, we're going to talk about operating and scaling. Now you need to operate and scale your new business, and this step is all about restraint. Absolute worst mistake that new owners make is rushing in and starting to change everything. Instead, you want to let the business run as is for at least 3 to 6 months. You want to learn from the systems and the team before you touch a thing. When it's time to optimize, you then test one change at a time, such as marketing tweaks or pricing experiments or new offers, so you only have one variable and you know exactly what that change is attributed to. This patience is what separates smooth operators from chaotic operators. So once the business is stable and you've grown it to where you want to get it to, the final question is, how do you prepare for an exit so you can maximize your return? And week 12 is all about prepping for exit. Your role shifts from operator to future seller. And even if you plan to hold the business for years, you want to run it like it could be sold tomorrow. You need clean books, solid systems, and steady growth because those increase valuation dramatically. Just think back to what you're looking for as a buyer, such as recurring revenue, reducing red flags, all the documentation processes, a good team, and you want to build those in now if they weren't in there already. And so when the time comes, you command a higher multiple and attract better buyers. If this 12-week roadmap gave you any clarity, the Digital Acquisition Club is where I go deeper into the process, and I share the exact checklists and templates and lender connections that I've used to close real deals dozens and dozens of times. Just click the link in the description below to schedule a call to learn more. I really look forward to helping you buy your first company, and I wish you all the success. Make sure to watch the next video if you want to learn how to turn $10,000 into $2 million, and use the link below to start building your own acquisition plan today. Thank you. Bye-bye.